Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever felt like you're grappling with a personal challenge, but it's like you're constantly picking at one thread, and the whole fabric of your life just isn't getting any better? It's that frustrating loop where you try one solution, it maybe helps a little, but the core issue just, well, it lingers, right? You know you're missing something, but what is it? Today, we're diving deep into a really fascinating framework. It's designed to give you a genuine 360-degree view of yourself, your growth, and, well, the world around you. We're talking about the AQAL framework for personal transformation. It's this powerful meta framework from Ken Wilber's integral theory. And our sources for this deep dive, they come from a pretty comprehensive set of notes, chapters, tables of content, basically outlining the core concepts and how you actually use them.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that this isn't just another, flavor of the month self-help trend. It's got real depth. Our mission today is basically to give you a shortcut to understanding this incredibly comprehensive model. We want to help you grasp its 5 core elements, how they interact, and maybe, most importantly, how to actually apply them in your life. The goal really is for you to understand yourself more fully, maybe finally break through some of those persistent life blocks, and design a truly balanced, sustainable personal growth strategy. Which, raises a really important question. What if the solution to your biggest challenges requires seeing the whole elephant, not just the one part you happen to be touching?
Right, the whole picture. So get ready for some genuine aha moments, I think, because by the end of this deep dive, you'll not only have a clear understanding of what equal is, but you'll hopefully walk away with a practical roadmap for integrating its insights into your daily life. For, genuine transformation. Think of equal as like the Google Earth of consciousness. That's a great way to put it. It gives you this 360-degree map of self, society, even spirit, and it lets you zoom in and out across all the different layers of your experience. So where did this powerful idea even come from? Let's start there. AQAL, which really is the core framework of what's called integral theory, it emerged from the work of Ken Wilber. He's an American philosopher, a consciousness researcher. And Wilber noticed this critical problem really across pretty much every discipline out there. He saw that almost every field, psychology, religion, science, politics, had these really important insights, but they were all, as he put it, incomplete. Each one offered a valuable lens, sure, but none gave you that truly holistic view. So his ambitious goal was to integrate these disparate but valuable perspectives into one big comprehensive model.
Right. He wanted to respectfully weave together our inner worlds and our outer worlds,
Yeah.
acknowledge both individual and collective perspectives,
Yeah.
bridge science and spirituality, which often feel so separate, unify mind and body, and also account for both the stages of growth, like how we develop over time,
Right.
and those temporary states of being we all
It
experience.
sounds like a massive undertaking.
Oh, it is. It's truly a monumental effort to synthesize human knowledge and experience into something coherent. And the acronym itself, AQAL, it's kind of a key to understanding just how comprehensive it aims to be. It stands for all quadrants, all levels, but then importantly, we add lines, states, and types, that full picture.
Okay.
This whole thing points to a whole system view of growth and being. So all quadrants, that's the 4 fundamental perspectives we can view anything from.
Yeah.
Reality's viewpoints, basically.
Yeah.
All levels describes the stages of development or growth that can happen within each of those perspectives.
That's it.
All lines points to the multiple intelligences or capacities we have, like emotional smarts, moral reasoning that develops sort of independently through these levels. All states covers the temporary conditions, like being in a flow or feeling fear. And finally, all types accounts for those stable kind of inborn personality styles and preferences that make each of us unique. Put them all together. And you get this remarkably thorough lens for understanding ourselves and the world.
So someone listening might be thinking, okay, another framework. How is this radically different? Because there are a lot out there. And I think this is where it gets really interesting. Most self-help, most life frameworks, they tend to focus pretty narrowly, right, on just one aspect. Maybe it's behavior change habits or mindset shifts, positive thinking, or emotional regulation therapy, or maybe spirituality meditation only.
Right, they pick a lane.
Exactly. But AQAL says, hold on, you are fundamentally more complex than that. It recognizes you're a body and a mind and a soul and a social being and a cultural product, and you're a node in these larger systems all at the same time. The game changer here isn't just giving you one tool, it's like giving you the entire toolbox and the blueprint for how to use them all together.
That's a great way to put it. It's integrated.
Yeah, this integrated approach helps you diagnose problems from multiple angles. It makes sure you grow in a truly balanced way instead of, overdeveloping one area while others lag behind.
Which happens a lot.
Totally. It helps you avoid that one-size-fits-all advice and lets you pull insights from science, spirituality, psychology, all into one coherent understanding. You basically stop thinking in fragments and start thinking like a systems level human, seeing how it all connects. So as we dive in, maybe just consider this for a second. Which areas of your life do you tend to overfocus on? And just as importantly, which ones do you maybe ignore? What's the real cost of not seeing that full picture?
And that's exactly the core problem AQAL is designed to solve. Because most people, let's face it, operate with what we could call a partial map of reality. They might over-intellectualize, trying to think their way out of everything.
Then
Right. Or conversely, they might over-spiritualize their suffering, hoping for some kind of transcendence without actually facing their practical realities. Some blame external systems entirely without looking within, while others focus only on action, on habits, without cultivating deeper awareness or meaning. And the result? Their growth often ends up lopsided, it's short-lived, and they find themselves repeating the same old patterns, often unaware of their own blind spots. AQAL's proposition is pretty clear and actually quite profound. If you don't include the whole truth, your solutions will be partial and your results will be unstable. It really insists on that comprehensive view because anything less just leads to temporary fixes, basically.
it makes me think of that classic story, The Blind Man and the Elephant. You know the one?
Oh yeah, perfect analogy.
Each man touches a different part. The trunk, the tusk, the tail, and each one confidently claims they know the whole animal based on their tiny bit of experience. They're all partially right, of course, but fundamentally wrong about the whole thing. Therapy, for instance, it's brilliant at illuminating your inner life, your emotions. That's the upper left. Productivity stuff is great for actions and habits, upper right. Spirituality can give huge perspective on transcendence. Science gives us objective data. But each only has a piece of the puzzle. They lack that unified, what did you call it, a meta perspective to connect the dots.
Exactly.
AQAL in that story is the full elephant. It gives you the big picture to connect all those seemingly separate insights.
And using AQAL, you gain this ability to diagnose with depth.
Yeah.
So instead of seeing a problem like burnout or self-sabotage is just not trying hard enough, you learn to view it through multiple lenses. You look at your inner experience, UL, you observe your actual behaviors, UR, you consider the cultural scripts you've inherited,
Yeah.
LL, and you assess the systemic dynamics at play. This multidimensional approach means you can grow with balance. You stop that tendency to overdevelop one area, like your intellect, maybe at the expense of your body or your emotional awareness.
Which is so common for smart people, right?
Totally. It helps you integrate insights, fostering more of a both-hand way of thinking instead of either. And critically, because it includes understanding types and lines, AQAL lets you customize transformation based on your unique profile. You stop trying to fit into generic formulas.
Yeah, without something like AQAL, personal development can feel like just endless trial and error, right? Chasing the next silver bullet, getting stuck in these frustrating loops. It can be exhausting. But with AQAL, you kind of become your own systems level coach. You get these powerful tools to map your patterns, pinpoint the exact missing pieces in how you're approaching things, and build a strategy that's actually based on your whole self. You essentially become the system architect of your own evolution. It's about taking a proactive, informed, and truly holistic approach. So as you're hearing this, maybe think about, where in your life do you feel like something's just missing, even though you feel like you're doing all the right things? How might your current challenges look completely different if you applied this integral lens, moving beyond those partial maps to see the full complex picture?
Okay, let's really get into the core of AQAL now. Starting with the first element, all quadrants. Think of it like this. Everything in reality, including you, can be seen from 4 fundamental viewpoints. These aren't just convenient categories. They're like irreducible truths, fundamental perspective.
Okay.
4 truths. Yeah. You've got the upper left UL quadrant.
Yeah.
That's your subjective inner world, your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, conscious experiences, all that lives there.
Yeah.
Then there's the upper right UR quadrant, the it. That's your objective outer body and observable behaviors. Anything that can be empirically measured or seen from the outside.
Like heart rate or actions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then moving to the collective dimensions, we have the lower left LL quadrant, the we. This is the realm of shared meaning, culture, values, language, relationships, the intersubjective world we share. And finally, the lower right LR quadrant, the it's. This covers systems, environments, institutions, technologies, all of the objective collective structures.
Wow, okay.
When the key is every single experience, every problem you face inherently has all four of these dimensions. They're always co-arising, always interconnected. You can't really separate them.
That anxiety example you mentioned earlier really brought the quadrants to life for me. It just highlights the real aha here, doesn't it? If you only ever look through one of these lenses, you're not just missing pieces, you're fundamentally misunderstanding the whole thing.
Precisely.
I like the drone analogy too. Imagine a drone flying above your life, but it's got 4 cameras filming simultaneously. There's the internal camera capturing your thoughts and feelings, UL, an external camera seeing your physical actions, your body, UR, a social camera recording your interactions, the cultural norms around you, LL, and a structural camera observing the larger systems, the environment, LR.
Hmm.
If you only watch one of those feeds, you're missing the full story. AQAL helps you synchronize the feeds, see the integrated whole.
Exactly. And this is where so many people get stuck without realizing it. If you're only focused on the UL, the I, you might just overthink everything, maybe blame yourself too much, but miss the behavioral or social causes of your problems.
Right. Analysis paralysis.
Totally. And UR only focus, the it, can lead to obsession with biohacking, thinking physical fixes alone solve everything while neglecting emotional depth or meaning. Someone stuck in LL only, the we, might fall into groupthink, overemphasizing collective identity, maybe losing their individual perspective or responsibility.
Yeah, I can see that.
And an LR-only perspective, the it's, often results in constantly blaming external systems. It's the economy, it's the government, without recognizing their own inner power or contribution. Real maturity from this perspective means developing cross-quadrant fluency. It's the ability to naturally shift perspectives and see how all 4 dimensions are interacting in any given situation.
So for you listening, what comes to mind right now? A really powerful practice you could start today is to pick a specific problem in your life, something that keeps coming up, like I keep sabotaging my goals. Then consciously grab a piece of paper, draw the 4 quadrants, and ask yourself for each. What am I feeling internally? What are my beliefs or fears here? UL. What behaviors or bodily patterns reinforce this? What am I doing? UL. What cultural values, maybe from my family or society, influence this? What relationships are involved? LL. And what systems, tools, or environments make this easier or harder? As you do that, maybe notice, which quadrant do you naturally focus on most? And which one do you tend to ignore? The insights just from that can be pretty transformative.
Absolutely. So if quadrants are the fundamental perspectives, or 4 cameras, let's say then all levels adds the vertical dimension, it's about growth within those perspectives. Levels are basically progressive stages of growth. Growth in awareness, in morality, in worldview, in identity.
Stages, like steps on a ladder.
Sort of. But it's crucial to understand they aren't just about accumulating more knowledge. They represent fundamentally deeper and broader ways of being. Each level transcends, meaning it goes beyond, but also includes what came before. It integrates the previous stage, becoming more inclusive, more complex, more able to handle nuance.
Okay, so it builds on itself.
Exactly. Think of it like
Yeah.
the lens in your camera getting clearer, less distorted, and wider as you move up through the levels. Your understanding of reality expands and becomes less partial.
So we've got the 4 lenses, the quadrants. Now imagine those lenses themselves are getting clearer, less distorted over time. That's kind of what levels are about. They mark this progression, generally speaking, from a very narrow me perspective to a broader us or my group, then expanding further to all people and potentially even to all beings, all life.
That's the general trajectory, yeah.
And it means you can be highly developed in one area, say cognitively, but maybe less developed emotionally. Or spiritually awake, but perhaps ethically immature. The levels aren't always even across the board. They also tend to be irreversible, right? Once you genuinely stabilize at a higher level of understanding, you don't easily unsee it.
Generally, yes. Development tends to move forward.
And AQAL pulls in lots of established models here, like spiral dynamics.
Exactly. It integrates models like spiral dynamics, Kohlberg's stages of moral development, Jane Lovinger's ego development, Fowler's stages of faith. It finds the deep underlying pattern across all of them.
Which is that general movement you described. Egocentric to ethnocentric, my group, to world-centric, all people, and maybe even cosmocentric, all beings.
That's the core developmental sequence it identifies.
Let's think about a real-life application. Worldview conflict seems like a big one where understanding levels could really help. Like, imagine you're incredibly frustrated because maybe your parents just don't get climate change, or they hold views that seem really outdated or even prejudiced to you.
Common scenario.
The key insight from a levels perspective might be that you're operating from, say, a world-centric view. You care about universal well-being, the planet. Your parents, though, might be operating from a more traditional or ethnocentric stage, where their primary concern is their immediate family, community, or nation.
Right. Their circle of care is smaller.
So it's not just a difference of opinion. It could be a fundamental difference in their level of development, their capacity to hold these broader perspectives, which also explains why just throwing facts at them might not work.
Exactly. And it highlights why lines matter, too, because development isn't uniform. Someone might be world-centric in their thinking, but ethnocentric in their emotional reactions.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
And this is where we need to be really careful about common pitfalls related to levels. There's a real tendency toward what's called stage arrogance, where someone starts looking down on perceived lower stages, feeling superior.
Yeah, the I'm more evolved than you trap.
Precisely. Or we can fall into stage fusion, mistakenly believing that our current level represents the ultimate truth, the end of the line. And what's fascinating, as you touched on, is that you might be cognitively brilliant, understanding complex integral theory, UL, but emotionally still quite traditional, reacting to relationship challenges from a much earlier, more reactive emotional stage, LL. This raises that crucial self-reflection question. From what level is this particular thought, feeling, or action coming from right now? When you can start asking that, you begin to unravel the real dynamics.
So for you listening, in your own journey, where do you feel you've really evolved significantly? Where have you genuinely expanded your perspective? And conversely, where do you notice yourself still reacting from an older mindset, maybe more egocentric or ethnocentric than you'd like? How can you consciously work to evolve those areas where you feel a bit stuck?
Okay, so we've covered quadrants as the fundamental perspectives and levels as the stages of growth within them. That leads us perfectly to the next element, all lines. A line in this AQAL context is basically a specific capacity or an intelligence that develops through those levels we just talked about over time. The key idea is you don't just grow as one big, undifferentiated blob. Instead, you grow line by line.
Line by line, like different streams.
Exactly. Think of your cognitive ability, your emotional intelligence, your moral compass, your interpersonal skills, your spiritual sensitivity, even your kinesthetic or somatic awareness, your body's intelligence. These are all seen as distinct lines of development. Each has its own focus, its own path of development through the stages or levels, and importantly, its own unique speed for each person.
So not everyone develops everything at the same rate.
Not at all. Some people shoot ahead on their cognitive line, becoming brilliant thinkers very early. Others might develop their emotional or interpersonal lines much more quickly and deeply. It varies hugely.
I love the analogy you used before, the sound mixing board. That really clicked for me. Imagine your personal development is like that mixing board in a recording studio. Each slider on the board is a different developmental line. Cognitive, emotional, moral, spiritual, interpersonal, etc. Now, for any given person, some of those sliders, maybe the cognitive one, might be turned way up high. Highly developed capacity there. But other sliders, perhaps the emotional line or the somatic body awareness line, might be barely on, relatively underdeveloped.
Right.
AQAL essentially asks, okay, look at your whole board. What sliders are way down? What capacity are you underdeveloping that's actually holding back your full potential, maybe causing problems elsewhere? It just brings those imbalances right into the light.
Yeah, exactly. And just to clarify the distinction, again, between lines and levels, because it can be a bit tricky. Think of levels as stages, like altitude on a mountain. You climb higher, your perspective gets broader. That's vertical development. Lines, on the other hand, are the different aspects of yourself that are doing the climbing. They're like multiple paths up that same mountain.
Okay, different paths.
Right. You might have one path, say, your cognitive line, that's like a steep, direct, quick ascent. You reach high altitudes levels really fast on that path. But another path, maybe your emotional line, could be a much slower, more winding trail. It might eventually reach the same high altitude, but it takes longer, more integration work, perhaps.
Oh, I see.
So while each line develops through the levels, they don't necessarily all grow together or at the same pace. That's why you can be highly developed in one area and much less so in another. That unevenness is key.
And this is precisely why understanding lines matter so incredibly much for real-world transformation. Because you might be, say, cognitively advanced, you can think complex thoughts, understand intricate theories, but maybe you're emotionally regressed, struggling with basic emotional regulation or empathy.
Classic example.
These asymmetries, these uneven profiles, they create significant life problems that cannot be solved by simply reinforcing your strengths. If you only focus on what you're already good at, I'll just think harder, you'll likely just exacerbate the imbalances.
You dig yourself deeper into the lopsidedness.
Exactly. True growth, then, comes from consciously identifying and maturing your underused lines, bringing a greater sense of balance and integration to your whole being. Like, if you're a deep thinker, maybe a spiritual seeker, high cognitive spiritual lines, but your relationships keep blowing up, suggesting lower emotional interpersonal lines. The solution isn't necessarily more philosophy or meditation. It might require specific development in those weaker lines, maybe journaling to understand emotions, engaging in therapy, actively practicing communication skills, doing shadow work.
Exactly. Targeted development for the lagging line.
So for you listening, take a moment. What line do you think you're most developed in? Where do you really shine? And then maybe more revealingly, which line feels weakest? How does that weakness show up in your life? Does it create recurring challenges or limit your potential in some way? And finally, what do you think would fundamentally change if you committed, even in a small way, to bringing just one of those underdeveloped lines into greater balance?
All right, moving on from the structural elements, quadrants, the developmental stages, levels, and different capacities lines. We now arrive at the fourth element, all states. States are simply temporary conditions of consciousness. You experience dozens, maybe hundreds of them every single day, often without even noticing.
Like moods, or more than that.
It includes moods, but it's broader. It covers the basic states like waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. It includes various emotional states, joy, grief, anger, peace, the intense focus of a flow state, and then there are what we call peak or altered states. These can be profound experiences like mystical states during deep meditation, moments of awe in nature, or even states induced by things like breath work or psychedelics. You literally move through multiple states constantly, but only some of them are conscious, trainable, or hold truly transformative potential. I think the best way to grasp the difference between states and levels is that weather versus climate analogy. That's really helpful. States are like the weather. They're temporary conditions, sunshine, rain, storms, calm, they come and go. Levels, on the other hand, are like the climate. They represent your long-term, stable patterns of awareness and being, your baseline.
Oh, I see.
So you can experience a glorious spiritual high, a moment of profound unity or bliss that's like a sudden burst of sunshine during a meditation retreat. It's beautiful, it's real, it shows you what's possible. However, if your underlying baseline mindset, your climate, is still, say, ego defensive or highly reactive.
The default setting.
Right, your default setting.
Yeah.
Then that temporary state, that sunshine, it won't last. You'll likely revert back to your stormy baseline once the retreat is over or the feeling fades.
Yeah.
That distinction is absolutely crucial for authentic growth.
So why do these temporary states matter so much then if they don't last? Well, first, states often show you what's actually possible. They can provide the very first taste of higher consciousness, breaking open old assumptions about reality and yourself, and really motivating you to do deep inner work. Think about a moment of profound awe you felt in nature, or maybe that incredible sense of unity you experienced in deep meditation or connection.
Glimpses.
Yeah, glimpses. They offer these moments beyond your ordinary reality, and they can be incredibly healing and inspiring. But here's the critical point you made. A temporary awakening doesn't automatically equal stable transformation. You can feel one with everything during an intense ayahuasca ceremony, for instance, but still go back to daily life and be just as emotionally reactive with your partner as before.
Absolutely.
The state itself is a gift. It's a glimpse, maybe a potential, but it requires conscious integration work to actually shift your stable baseline, your climate.
And this brings us directly to one of the biggest traps in the whole personal growth or spiritual world, state-stage confusion.
Okay, state-stage confusion. What's that?
It's the mistake of confusing a temporary state experience, like that feeling of oneness for a permanent developmental achievement, a shift in your actual level or stage. This confusion can lead to some really problematic stuff. One is what's often called spiritual bypassing.
Ah, yes, I've heard that term.
Yeah. It's where someone uses these profound states or even just spiritual concepts to avoid doing the deeper, often uncomfortable inner work. facing their emotional wounds, their unresolved traumas, their character flaws. They might say, oh, it's all illusion, or I am one with everything, while still being completely unable to handle conflict and engage in honest conversations or process their own grief or shame.
Right, using the state to skip the work.
Exactly. It can also lead to inflation, where someone gets a temporary insight and suddenly believes they're enlightened or fundamentally superior. Or even addiction, constantly chasing peak experiences, needing the next high, the next workshop, the next ceremony, without ever truly integrating the lessons into their everyday behavior and relationships. We have to remember, states are invaluable teachers, potential catalysts, but they are not the destination itself. Integration is key.
So how do we integrate these powerful state experiences so they actually contribute to genuine growth, to changing our climate? It really starts with mindful reflection, doesn't it? Like journaling immediately after any peak state or even just a strong emotional state, asking yourself, okay, what did I truly see or understand there? What did I deeply feel? And crucially, what does this insight ask of me in my daily life? How can I live this?
That translation piece is vital.
Totally. Then the critical step is to translate that insight into concrete practice. If the insight was, everything is connected, your practice might become, okay, today I will consciously try to treat others as if they are literally part of myself. Make it actionable. You also probably need to ground the experience, right?
Yeah.
With embodiment practices, conscious breathing, mindful movement, just feeling your feet on the ground. Get it out of just the head.
Essential for integration.
And finally, maybe share the experience, but with discernment. Don't necessarily preach about your amazing insight. Instead, try to live the insight in your actions, letting your changed behavior be the real evidence of the transformation.
Well said.
Okay.
Embodied insight.
So reflecting on this, what's the most powerful state you've ever experienced? What profound insight did you gain from it? And maybe ask yourself honestly, did you actually live that insight in your daily life afterward? How did you integrate it, if at all? And what regular practices do you maybe already have or could you introduce that help you access meaningful states safely and consciously, ensuring they contribute to your stable development, your climate, rather than just being temporary weather events?
Okay, and that brings us to the fifth and final core element of the AQAL model, all types. So while quadrants, levels, and lines describe more universal aspects of human experience and growth, types refer to those relatively stable, often inborn patterns. Patterns of personality, processing style, energy balance, fundamental identity orientation.
Like personality types, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Those are common examples used within an AQAL approach. The key here is that types are not about being better or worse. There's no hierarchy like with levels. They represent fundamental differences in form, different styles. Everyone, regardless of their type, still develops through the same stages, levels, and along various capacities lines. However, they do so in profoundly different ways, according to their type.
Ah, okay. So type influences the how, not necessarily the how far.
Precisely. It's about optimizing your unique nature, your specific flavor of being human, rather than trying to fit into some generic mold that isn't really you.
So just to clarify again how types fit into the bigger AQAL picture. Levels are like vertical growth, how high you can climb in awareness. Lines are the different capacities growing at their own rate, like different climbing ropes. States are temporary experiences, the weather. But types are these generally stable patterns, your basic personality structure, that affect how you grow, how you climb that mountain. Is that right?
That's a great summary. Think of it like hiking that mountain again. Everyone potentially climbs to the same altitude levels, but they use different paths and gear types. You can't just trade your lightweight trail runners, maybe an adaptable type, for someone else's heavy-duty mountaineering boots, a more structured type, and expect it to work well for you. You have to optimize your own unique equipment and style.
Makes sense. And AQAL practice often incorporates these well-established taping systems, you said,
Yeah.
like the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, MBTI, maybe masculine-feminine energy polarities, introvert-extrovert distinctions.
Yes, exactly. These systems aren't seen as definitive labels meant to box you in, but rather as powerful tools to help you understand your inherent predispositions, your unique psychological wiring, your default operating system. And understanding your type is incredibly valuable for a few key reasons. First, it actively customizes your growth path. You stop blindly copying what works for others and start designing approaches that genuinely suit you.
So less frustration trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Exactly. Which also prevents a lot of unnecessary shame and confusion. You realize, oh, this is difficult for me, not because I'm broken, but because it goes against my core wiring. Knowing types also deepens compassion for others. because you start to see that people are genuinely wired differently. Their annoying habits might just be part of their type structure.
Good point. Less judgment.
Hopefully. And crucially, understanding your type reveals your potential blind spots. Because every type has inherent gifts, but also corresponding shadows, predictable pitfalls that need conscious attention and integration. However, and this is a big however, there's a significant trap here, type fixation.
Type fixation, like getting stuck on your label.
Exactly. It's when you use your type as an excuse. Oh, I can't be organized, I'm an ENFP, or I have to withdraw, I'm an Enneagram 5. You use it as an identity crutch or a shield to avoid growth.
Right, limiting yourself by the label.
Precisely. We have to remember, types are helpful patterns to guide your journey. They offer self-understanding, but they are absolutely not prisons that limit your potential for evolution. You can always grow beyond the stereotypes of your type.
A really good way to see this in action is in real-life conflict, like in relationships or teams. Imagine two friends constantly clashing. Maybe one is a highly structured, future-focused INTJ type, loves detailed plans, logic. The other is a spontaneous, present-focused ESFP type, prefers flexibility, going with the flow.
Polar opposites in some ways.
Right. They might clash repeatedly over something as simple as planning a weekend trip. The INTJ wants an itinerary. The ESFP wants to see what happens. Now, without understanding their fundamental personality types, they might just blame each other. You're too rigid, you're too flaky, and it spirals into resentment.
Yeah, happens all the time.
But with awareness of their respective types, they can actually stop blaming and start bridging the differences. They can appreciate the value the other brings and find ways to collaborate.
Their type becomes a starting point for understanding and negotiation, not a fixed ceiling that limits their ability to connect or find solutions.
So, as you reflect on this final element, types, what do you know about your own dominant personality type or style? If you've explored systems like Enneagram or MBTI, what challenges or limitations do you typically encounter that seem connected to that type? And maybe most importantly, what would it truly mean for you to honor your type, to work with your natural wiring, leverage its strengths, but fundamentally not be limited by it? How could you allow yourself to stretch and grow beyond its typical patterns?
Okay, so now we get to the really practical part, where the rubber meets the road, as they say. We've laid out the 5 elements: quadrants, levels, lines, states, types. Now, how do we actually apply them to understand ourselves more fully and tackle real-life issues? The step-by-step process for using AQAL for self-understanding really begins by choosing a meaningful and recurring issue in your life. Go pick something trivial, pick something with some heat, some persistence.
Like that procrastination example, or feeling disconnected, or maybe a recurring conflict pattern.
Exactly. Something concrete and persistent. That allows for a truly insightful analysis.
Okay, got my issue. What's next?
Once you've chosen your issue, the next crucial step is to analyze it using the 4 quadrants. Get that basic map down first. You can literally create a simple 4-quadrant table on a piece of paper. And then, with as much brutal honesty as you can muster, fill in your insights for each quadrant related to that specific issue.
So, for the upper left, the I quadrant, I'd ask, what am I feeling, fearing, believing, hoping internally about this procrastination?
Perfect. For the upper right, the it, you'd ask, what do I actually do when I procrastinate? What are my observable behaviors? What's happening in my body? Energy levels, tension.
Okay. Behavior and body.
For the lower left, the we you delve into,
Yeah.
what shared meanings, cultural values, maybe from family, work, society shape this pattern? What relational dynamics are involved?
Right. The cultural soup I'm in.
Precisely. And for the lower right, the it's you consider. What larger systems, tools, environment, structures might be contributing? Lack of deadlines, distracting workspace, economic pressures.
Got it. So that quadrant analysis broadens the view significantly, but then you said we add depth.
Exactly. The quadrants give you the lay of the land. Now we have the other elements for a richer picture. Next, incorporate developmental levels. Ask yourself, from what stage or level of development am I reacting in this specific area?
Like am I acting from a mature place or regressing?
Yeah. Is there a mismatch? Like cognitively, you want world-centric connection,
Yeah.
LL. But emotionally, you react from an ethnocentric place of defensiveness, also LL, but lower level.
Yeah.
Then examine your developmental lines. Is this procrastination issue rooted in an underdeveloped line? Is it cognitive, can't plan, emotional, fear of failure, moral, avoiding responsibility, interpersonal, fear of judgment?
Pinpointing the specific capacity.
Right. Is your emotional line underdeveloped, leading to that fear that paralyzes you? Next, identify your state experiences. What states do you consistently shift into when this procrastination kicks in? Do you numb out, feel anxious, panic, get irritable?
Noticing the internal weather pattern.
Exactly. And finally, bring in your type. Ask, how does my specific personality type typically respond to this kind of challenge? What is my type trying to avoid or protect here? As an Enneagram 9, for example, is my procrastination a form of passive resistance driven by my core fear of conflict? Or as an INTJ, is it because the plan isn't perfect yet?
Wow, okay, that's layers upon layers.
It is. Let's quickly rerun that procrastination example with all 5 elements now. UL, inner. I feel overwhelmed, afraid I'll fail. UR. Energy dips, reach for phone snacks. LL, cultural relational. Family valued, not rocking the boat. Team avoids direct feedback. LR, systemic. No clear deadlines, distracting, open plan office. Level, maybe reacting from an earlier emotional level focused on safety avoidance rather than growth contribution. Lines, underdeveloped emotional line, can't process fear well. Maybe underdeveloped volitional line, willpower. States, consistent shift into anxiety followed by numbness distraction. Type, Enneagram 9 pattern of using procrastination as passive resistance to perceived pressure.
Okay, when you lay it out like that.
See, the powerful insight isn't just I'm lazy, it's this procrastination. This procrastination is a complex defense strategy rooted in a confluence of inner fear, learned cultural patterns, systemic factors, developmental immaturity in certain lines, triggered states, and my core personality structure.
Which means the solution has to be multi-pronged too.
Exactly. You need to address the inner emotional courage, UL lines levels,
Right.
and change behaviors, UR, and maybe renegotiate expectations, LL, and change the environment or systems, LR, all while understanding your state triggers and type tendencies. It's a holistic intervention.
So thinking about that issue in your own life, the one that feels really stuck, when you take the time to apply all 5 AQAL lenses, quadrants, levels, lines, states, types, what surprising new connections or insights emerge? What part of yourself or your situation have you perhaps been ignoring or underestimating in this whole struggle?
Building right on that understanding, AQAL truly shines as a diagnostic tool, but also as an intervention tool for breaking through those really persistent life blocks. A life block, just to be clear, isn't just a temporary bad mood or a small obstacle. It's that recurring thing, that deep frustration that persists no matter how much effort you throw at it.
Like always sabotaging relationships right when they get serious, or hitting the same career ceiling over and over, or that feeling of perpetual burnout despite trying all the wellness tips.
Precisely those kinds of patterns. And the crucial insight AQAL offers is that these are almost always multidimensional problems that look like simple ones on the surface. Most life blocks get misdiagnosed because people, understandably, only view them through 1 or maybe 2 AQAL dimensions. They fail to see the interconnectedness of all the contributing factors.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's where the standard mistake in a lot of self-help or conventional approaches comes in, right? They tend to assume a linear single-cause solution. If I just change my habits, my life will transform. That's focusing only on the upper right, the behavior.
Yeah.
Or if I just heal my inner child, all my problems will disappear, which is a purely upper left inner experience focus. Important, but maybe not the whole story.
Right. But the reality is these real persistent blocks are far more complex. They're like these deeply tied knots, woven and reinforced in multiple quadrants at once. And often they involve conflicts across different levels, weaknesses in specific lines, habitual negative states, and defenses related to our type. Trying to just pull on one thread rarely unravels the whole knot.
So you need a multi-pronged approach to untie it.
Exactly. The AQAL approach offers these precise diagnostic steps for tackling blocks. First, you clearly identify the block. Get specific. For instance, I consistently collapse under pressure or self-sabotage right when I start achieving significant success. Next, run a full AQAL diagnostic on it, just like we did with procrastination. Map it across all 5 elements. What are the inner beliefs and fears? UL, what are the physiological responses and sabotaging behaviors? What family or cultural messages about success or visibility might be at play?
Yeah.
LO, what systemic lack of support or chaotic environment contributes? LO, what level is driving the fear? Which lines are weak? What states get triggered? How does my type play into this fear of success?
Okay, map the whole territory of the block.
Yes. Then specifically look for level conflicts. Is part of you wanting success at a higher level, but another part reacting from a much lower developmental level based on old survival fears? Pinpoint underdeveloped lines. Which specific capacity, maybe resilience, emotional regulation, self-worth is weak and contributing to the collapse? Recognize the state triggers. What state do you typically drop into when the pressure mounts? Panic, overwhelm, dissociation, numbness. And finally, leverage your type awareness. How does your specific personality type express or even unconsciously defend this block? Is it trying to protect your identity in some way?
Let's try another example. That fear of public speaking is a huge block for many people. How would AQAL diagnose that? Okay, UL lens. I feel intensely exposed, judged, afraid of making a fool of myself.
Yeah.
UR lens. Sweaty palms, racing heart, trembling voice, maybe avoiding opportunities to speak. LL lens. Maybe grew up in a culture or family where speaking out or drawing attention was seen as arrogant or unsafe. LR lens. Maybe the workplace lacks supportive feedback structures or offers no training.
Good start. Now add the rest.
Okay, level. The fear might be rooted in an emotional pre-conventional or conventional stage, where the primary driver is avoiding social disapproval or shame, rather than authentic self-expression. State. The state that floods them is intense anxiety, maybe even panic. Type. If we consider type, maybe they're an Enneagram 6, for whom anticipating threats and seeking safety is paramount, making public speaking feel inherently dangerous.
Perfect. And see how the solution becomes truly multi-pronged.
Yeah, it's not just practice more, you are. It's also inner work on self-trust and fear. U-level state, maybe examining and shifting cultural beliefs. LL, potentially asking for better workplace support or training. LR, and understanding how your type interacts with the fear.
It becomes a genuinely holistic intervention strategy targeting all the roots of the block.
So think about that one block that's been with you for years. The one that seems to resist all your previous attempts to overcome it. How have you typically diagnosed it in the past? Which quadrant or element did you maybe over-focus on while ignoring others? What new possibilities, what new pathways for resolution open up when you consciously apply all 5 AQAL elements, quadrants, levels, lines, states, and types, to that persistent challenge?
Okay, so building on understanding ourselves and breaking through blocks, AQAL's ultimate power, perhaps, lies in helping you design a truly integral and personalized growth strategy, a proactive plan. Because let's face it, most people approach personal development pretty randomly, right? They follow whatever trend is hot, or they only address issues reactively when the pain gets bad enough.
Yeah, jumping from one thing to the next.
Exactly. And this often leads to a fragmented approach. They fix one thing here, another thing there, without seeing how it all connects or impacts the whole system of them. As a result, their growth can feel ungrounded. It often accidentally reinforces existing imbalances, like getting mentally sharper but emotionally colder, and it plateaus quickly. AQAL fundamentally changes this by helping you design a development path that is wise, that's sustainable, and that is uniquely yours. It ensures all aspects of your being are consciously acknowledged and nurtured.
So how do you start designing that kind of plan? The first step, according to the sources, is to clarify your core intention. And this isn't just about fixing a surface symptom like stop procrastinating. It's about identifying a deeper change you genuinely want to create, something that speaks to your next level of being, your evolving self.
Right. A deeper why.
Yeah. So instead of stop procrastinating, a deeper intention might be, I want to live with clarity, courage, and purpose, fully expressing my potential in the world. Something resonant. Then, with that intention in mind, you undertake a full AQAL self-assessment across all 5 elements. Just like we've been discussing. You ask, where am I neglecting an entire quadrant in my life right now? What's my current center of gravity in terms of levels, and where might I be evolving? Which developmental line or lines are most holding me back? What states uplift me and which states trap me? And how does my personality type shape my path both positively and negatively?
That comprehensive self-assessment becomes your invaluable integral growth map. It shows you where you are across the whole territory. And from that integral map, the next step is to identify key leverage points. Where can a small change create the biggest positive ripple effect? This could be a particularly weak line that's causing multiple issues elsewhere.
Yeah.
Or maybe an entire quadrant you've been consistently ignoring, like neglecting your body, or your relationships.
Or maybe a state you avoid.
Exactly. Perhaps it's a specific state you're always avoiding, like vulnerability, that actually holds wisdom for you. Or maybe it's a type defense pattern you're over-identifying with that's keeping you stuck. By pinpointing these leverage points, you can focus your energy strategically, where growth in one area will naturally unlock progress in many others. Once you have those leverage points, you can start designing specific daily and weekly practices across all 4 quadrants.
Making it concrete.
Yes. For the upper left, intramary, this might involve daily journaling, meditation, or specific shadow work exercises. For the upper right, outer body behavior, it's about foundational practices, prioritizing sleep, nutrition, consistent movement, maybe tracking habits. For the lower left, cultural relational, it could be intentionally engaging in honest, vulnerable conversations, or participating in conscious group circles or communities. And for the lower right, systemic environmental, it involves practical things like decluttering your space, redesigning your work environment, optimizing your workflow systems, or engaging in social action.
Wow, okay, so practices for every dimension.
Exactly. This holistic approach ensures your transformation is truly balanced and grounded, not lopsided or just stuck in your head.
And you mentioned consciously working with states, too.
Absolutely. You need to intentionally schedule practices for state access and integration. Ask yourself, what positive states do I want to cultivate more regularly? Maybe groundedness, flow, compassion, joy. Design specific practices, meditation, breath work, time in nature to consciously access them.
Okay.
But equally important, what challenging states are you typically avoiding that might actually hold valuable wisdom or energy for you? Maybe grief, anger, fear. Can you create safe ways to explore and integrate those too? And don't just access the state, include integration practices, journaling after, talking about it, translating the insight into action.
And finally, the type piece. How does that fit into the plan?
Crucially, you must both honor and stretch your unique type. This means including some type-aligned strategies in your plan, things that feel natural and leverage your strengths. If you're an introvert, schedule solo time. If you're a planner, make plans.
Work with your wiring.
Yes. But also intentionally include some type-stretching practices that build capacity beyond your comfort zone. If you're introverted, maybe practice small social interactions. If you avoid conflict, practice expressing disagreement respectfully. The goal here is not to fundamentally change your type or become someone else. It's to become yourself, expand it, fully actualizing your unique potential within your inherent framework while also growing beyond its limitations.
So let's imagine a sample weekly growth plan, just to make it super concrete. Tailored using AQAL. Okay, maybe Monday morning, you focus on journaling inner beliefs about a specific goal, UL. Tuesday could be dedicated to strength training and ensuring 8 hours of sleep, UR. Wednesday evening, you commit to having an honest, potentially difficult conversation with a partner or colleague, LL. Thursday, you block time to audit your workflow and tidy your workspace, LR. Friday might involve a dedicated meditation session focusing on cultivating compassion, followed by an integration journal entry about any states accessed. States. And maybe over the weekend, you consciously decide to do something that pushes you gently outside your typical type comfort zone, like if you're highly structured, you intentionally leave part of the day unplanned, type stretch.
That's a great example of a balanced integral week.
So, thinking about your own life, what is the deeper transformation you're truly seeking right now? Not just fixing a surface problem, but a fundamental shift in how you show up. When you honestly assess your own quadrants, levels, lines, states, and type, what quadrant or line have you habitually neglected in your past growth efforts? And critically, what daily or weekly rituals designed with your whole unique being in mind would truly honor that deeper intention and propel you forward?
Now, it's really important to talk about mastery and integration because AQAL, while incredibly powerful, is also complex. Like any sophisticated tool, it can be misused or misunderstood if you're not careful. This part matters because without genuine self-awareness and, frankly, some humility in applying it, you can easily fall into common pitfalls.
Like what kinds of pitfalls?
Well, you could intellectualize the whole framework, becoming an expert on the theory, endlessly mapping yourself, but without any real change in your life or embodiment.
The armchair integralist.
Exactly.
Or you might misuse profound insights as a form of ego inflation. Look how evolved I am. Or you might try to hack transformation, looking for shortcuts to bypass the necessary, often uncomfortable process of facing your own pain, your shadow, your vulnerabilities. The core truth here is that AQAL must be lived, must be embodied, not just studied or talked about. It's fundamentally a practice.
Okay, so let's shine a bright light on some of the most common missteps people make when they start engaging seriously with AQAL. You mentioned over-intellectualization. That's like a dominance of the upper left quadrant, right? Reading endlessly, analyzing everything, but without it translating into changed behavior, UR, or better relationships, LL.
Precisely. And the fix for that is simple, though not easy. Prioritize practice over theory. Use the framework as a map to guide action. Don't just admire the map itself.
Another trap you mentioned is quadrant neglect. Consistently over-focusing on one or two quadrants while ignoring the rest.
Yes. If you neglect the UL, you lack self-reflection, you don't know your own motives, ignore the UR outer body, and your health or habits suffer. Skip the LL, relational. You become isolated or interpersonally unskilled. Overlook the LR, systemic. and your environment works against you, you feel disorganized or overwhelmed by systems.
So the fix is constant vigilance.
Kind of. It's consistently asking yourself that simple question, what quadrant am I not looking at right now? Bring awareness to the blind spots.
Okay. Then there's the tricky one. Level inflation or stage arrogance. Thinking you're more developed than you really are, that looks like saying, oh, they just don't get it, they're still stuck at green, amber, whatever. Or using models like spiral dynamics to subtly, or not so subtly, judge others.
Right. A real misuse of developmental models. The fix here is rigorous stage humility. Always remembering that higher stage absolutely does not mean higher worth or better person. And honestly, assessing your actual center of gravity, not your ideal one.
And that ties into the next big one, especially common in spiritual circles. Shadow avoidance or state confusion. Using peak states to bypass the messy stuff.
Yes. Using those beautiful states of oneness or bliss, whether from meditation or other practices, to avoid dealing with your emotional wounds, your insecurities, your moral immaturities, your character defects.
That's the spiritual bypassing you mentioned earlier, saying, I am one with everything, while still being unable to handle feedback or face your own shame or grief.
Exactly. It's using spirituality as an escape route from psychological reality. The fix here is crucial. You must consciously integrate your shadow. Understand that genuine, grounded growth requires a combination of state access, experiencing possibilities, plus stage maturity, stable development, plus dedicated shadow work, facing the disowned parts. All three are necessary.
Got it. What else? Type fixation. Using your type as an excuse.
Exactly. Saying, well, I'm just an introvert, so I can't possibly lead that meeting. Or
Yeah.
as an Enneagram 4, I'm naturally melancholic, so don't expect me to be cheerful. It becomes a self-limiting identity crutch.
A shield from growth.
Perfectly put. The fix is to use your type as a starting point, not a ceiling. It informs how you might approach growth most naturally, but it should never dictate if or how far you grow. You can always develop capacities beyond your type stereotypes.
And the last one you mentioned was tool addiction. Obsessing over the models without embodiment.
Yeah, becoming addicted to the mapping, the tracking, the analyzing, constantly taking tests, refining your AQAL chart,
Yeah.
but without any discernible change in your actual presence, your behavior, your relationships, your felt sense of well-being.
All map, no movement.
Exactly. The fix is to consciously shift from maps to movement. Constantly ask yourself, okay, that's the analysis, but how is this showing up in my body, in my breath, in my behavior right now? What's one small action I can take based on this insight, grounded in lived experience?
So listening to all those pitfalls, which ones maybe resonate most with you? Where do you see your own tendencies? Have you ever, perhaps unconsciously, used AQAL or any other self-development system to feel a bit superior, or just to feel safe and like you've figured it all out? And what specific quadrant, line, state, or shadow element within yourself might you be subtly avoiding in your current practice or life?
This leads us to the real heart of it. The ultimate goal of engaging with AQAL isn't just to do AQAL occasionally, like pulling out a tool when you have a problem. It's to actually be integral. This means moving beyond intermittent practice to a place where awareness across all 5 elements, quadrants, levels, lines, states, types, becomes your natural default operating system. It infuses your everyday decisions, your relationships, your moment-to-moment self-reflection.
So you don't consciously use AQAL anymore. It just becomes how you see.
In a sense, yes. It becomes the lens through which you perceive and interact with reality. It means embodying what it means to be a whole human being, consciously aware of your inner and outer worlds, your individual and collective dimensions, the dynamic interplay of structure and spontaneity, stability and flow.
And how does that translate into practical daily habits? It sounds big.
Well, it can actually become micro habits that take mere seconds but build that lifelong integration muscle. Like for quadrants, you can just quickly ask in any situation, okay, wait, which quadrant am I ignoring here? Takes 2 seconds. For levels, am I acting from my highest center of gravity right now, or am I reacting from an older, less evolved pattern? A quick internal check. For linas, what capacity feels underdeveloped or out of balance in this specific situation? For states, you can simply notice and name your state. Okay, what am I feeling right now? Anxiety. Okay, what state would actually serve me better in this moment? Maybe calm presence.
Just naming it can shift it. Exactly. And for types, you can honor your wiring by asking, is this my growth edge pushing me? Or am I just falling back on an old, familiar, type-based defense pattern?
These are like tiny integral micro reflections that, when you practice them consistently, profoundly shape your awareness and your choices over time. And to deepen this embodiment, we really recommend establishing some kind of regular integral review ritual, maybe weekly, maybe monthly, every 7 to 30 days. Consciously pause and reflect using maybe an AQAL self-integration review. Ask yourself those key questions. Have I lived all 4 quadrants this week, ensuring I didn't just camp out in my favorite one? Dumb. Did I manage to rise to a new center of gravity in challenging moments, or did I mostly react from old patterns? Which developmental line did I consciously work on or perhaps noticeably neglect recently?
Mm.
Quote, what was the most powerful or meaningful state I accessed this week, and how did I genuinely integrate its wisdom into my daily life? And when did I honor my unique type strengths, and when did I consciously stretch beyond its comfort zone to grow?
You could log these reflections in a journal or a notes app, whatever makes it consistent.
Exactly. Consistency is key for tracking progress and insights.
And to make this even more actionable, something I found really helpful is the idea of creating your own personal integral dashboard. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can be a simple visual tool, maybe one page in your journal, or a digital note that gives you quick insight into your inner ecology, your integral landscape.
What might be on that dashboard?
Well, it could include a simple AQAL self-map, maybe a quadrant-based snapshot of your current life balance. Definitely list your top 1 or 2 identified growth edges, that weak line, that shadow pattern you're working on. Keep it front and center. Maybe include a simple state plan reminders of practices for accessing positive states you want to cultivate, and maybe integrating challenging ones. Have a concise type note or reminder to both honor your core wiring and gently stretch it. And always, always identify your next concrete action, one specific, doable thing you will commit to doing this week to move forward integrally.
I love that. A dashboard keeps it visible and actionable. It ensures you're growing with depth, balance, clarity, and wholeness every single day, not just thinking about it. And just a few final tips for truly making AQAL a way of life. Remember to start small. Don't try to implement everything at once. Pick one insight, one practice, and embody it deeply to build genuine capacity. Crucially, practice in real life. Use challenging situations, traffic jams, conflicts with loved ones, moments of unexpected joy as your actual practice field. That's where the integration happens.
Not just on the meditation cushion.
Exactly. Always stay grounded. Don't get lost in abstract theory. Constantly return to your body, your breath, your felt sense to anchor your insights. Actively use contrast. Allow others, especially those who trigger you, to be mirrors for your blind spots. Their reactions often point directly to your unintegrated shadows or level limitations.
Ooh, that's a challenging one.
It is, but powerful. And remember to update your practice as you evolve. What worked last year might not be your edge today. Your integral development is spiral-shaped, not a straight line. It revisits themes at higher levels. Embrace that cyclical, evolving journey.
So final reflection for everyone listening. When during your typical day do you tend to forget to act integrally? When do you fall back into those old, partial ways of seeing or reacting? What simple, conscious practice could help you remember the whole picture, your integral self, in that very moment? And what does living integrally truly look and feel like for you, not just as a concept in your mind, but as a lived reality in your body, your emotions, your relationships, and your everyday actions? Okay, if today's deep dive has sparked your curiosity and you want to explore AQAL further, there are some fantastic resources available to help you continue your integral journey. For really getting a foundational understanding, we highly recommend exploring Ken Wilber's core books. A Theory of Everything is probably the most accessible starting point for AQAL and integral theory overall.
Yeah, that's a good intro.
For a more visual overview with lots of diagrams and details, the Integral Vision is excellent, and there are many others like Integral Psychology for lines, levels, states, and Grace and Grit, which is his moving personal memoir showing integral principles in action during intense life challenges. We'll put a comprehensive list of all the books, websites, and communities mentioned, plus some extras in our show notes for you.
Definitely check those out. Beyond the books, Ken Wilber's main online hub is Integral Life. That's integrallife.com. It's a fantastic resource. They have courses, interviews with leading thinkers, community forums, articles, really focusing on applying AQAL to things like leadership, spirituality, relationships, shadow work. And for those who are interested in a really rigorous, in-depth, and mature application of integral theory, particularly in coaching or personal development, Integral Coaching Canada, integralcoachingcanada.com, offers incredibly comprehensive AQAL-based coach training and personal development programs. Highly respected.
And what about tools to help map your own integral profile? Any assessments you'd recommend? Well, the Integral Life Practice, IOP Matrix, available on the Integral Life site, is a great self-assessment grid. It helps you design practices across all four quadrants of your life: mind, body, spirit, shadow. For understanding your type, you can explore various Enneagram tests. There are many online, some free, some paid. And for cognitive preferences, MBTI resources like 16 personalities can be useful starting points, though remember, type is just one piece.
Use them as tools for inquiry, not definitive labels.
Exactly. And use things like spiral dynamics tests cautiously. They're often best interpreted with a trained facilitator.
Good point. Now, for embedding AQAL into your ongoing daily practice, think about implementing specific daily or weekly practices tied to each quadrant. Journaling or meditation for upper left, mind inner. Body scanning, exercise, nutrition focus for upper right, body behavior. Intentional, honest dialogue or community engagement for lower left, culture relationships. Workflow optimization or environment design for lower right, systems environment. And integrate those full spectrum reflection prompts we talked about. Keep them handy, maybe on your phone or a sticky note. In challenging moments, quickly cycle through. What quadrant am I ignoring? Am I speaking acting from my current highest level? Which line feels underdeveloped here? What state am I in and what would serve? How is my type shaping this reaction?
And finally, connection is key, right? Finding others on this path. Absolutely. Don't try to do it all alone. The Integral Life community online is a global hub for people engaging with Wilber's work. There are also communities focused on specific integral applications like MedIntegral for global change, Integral Zen for non-duality practice, the Stoa for integral philosophy discussions, Circling Europe for deep interpersonal practice. Finding others who are walking the same multidimensional path can provide invaluable support, shared learning, and keep you inspired. Check the show notes for links.
Yeah, and just as you embark on, or maybe continue, your integral journey, a few final integration suggestions to really make it stick. Maybe create your own integral practice stack. Choose just one or two simple practices per quadrant that resonate with you right now and commit to doing them consistently for, say, 30 days. Build that momentum. Keep an AQAL Well journal, maybe once a week. Reflect specifically on all 5 elements Q, L, L, S, T in relation to your experiences that week. Track your progress, insights, challenges.
Teaching it back is powerful too, right?
Hugely powerful. Consider explaining AQAL concepts, even just one element, to a friend or colleague. Teaching forces you to embody and understand it more deeply yourself. Remember not to rush the process. Integral development is spiral-shaped, not linear. You'll revisit themes. Be patient and embrace the cyclical nature of growth. And maybe most importantly, make it truly yours. Let AQAL be your compass, offering guidance and perspective, but never let it become your cage, limiting your unique expression or intuition. Adapt it, personalize it, live it. So, just to wrap up, today we've really gone on a deep dive into Ken Wilber's AQAL framework. We've uncovered how its 5 core elements, the quadrants, levels, lines, states, and types, offer this incredibly comprehensive map for understanding human experience and facilitating genuine transformation. It's fundamentally about moving beyond those partial, fragmented solutions to grasp the profound interconnectedness of your inner and outer worlds, your individual and collective realities, and your own unique path of growth and evolution.
Yeah, it really feels like this framework is this powerful invitation, isn't it? An invitation to become the conscious architect of your own evolution. It equips you with the tools not just to understand, but to diagnose challenges with real precision, to grow in a truly balanced way, and to integrate insights from basically every domain of your life: science, spirit, self, society. It's really about building a full spectrum life, one that honors and includes all parts of who you are. So, as you step back into your day now, maybe just consider this. What one small integral shift could you make right now? Perhaps it's just consciously noticing a quadrant you've been neglecting today, or taking one tiny step to develop a line you know is a bit weak. What small shift could create a positive ripple effect across your entire being? What new baseline for living more integrally, more wholly, will you consciously choose to establish for yourself starting today? And what's your very next edge in this incredible ongoing adventure of self discovery? The deep dive into yourself, into your potential, it truly is an ongoing journey. And the AQAL framework, well, it just might be your ultimate guide.